Okay, let's dive in. We've been handed some really fascinating source material today. It's a collection of excerpts called Thought Transformation for a Better Life.
Right. And what these sources really seem to zero in on is this concept that, well, many of us have probably heard it before, but maybe haven't fully, grappled with it.
Exactly. The idea that your thoughts, they might not just reflect your reality, but could actually actively shape it.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Almost too simple. But the sources here, they make a pretty compelling case.
They really do. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to unpack all of this together. We want to pull out the most important insights, look at the practical advice they're offering.
And really try to understand what it means when someone says, changing your thoughts could genuinely change your life. Where do we start?
Well, let's begin with that core idea itself. Change your thoughts, change your life.
Oh.
What are the sources suggesting that actually means, like on a day-to-day level?
The way they frame it,
Yeah.
it seems to be about understanding that your internal world, how you think about yourself, about others, the world, your challenges, that internal stuff is like a direct blueprint for your external experience.
Right. So if your head is full of negative thoughts, fear, self-doubt, you're essentially putting on glasses that tint everything gray.
Exactly. You'll naturally focus more on problems. You'll feel more stress, more anxiety.
Right.
It just follows,
But if you can manage to shift that internal focus, maybe cultivate thoughts that are a bit more empowering or hopeful, or maybe just focused on solutions.
Then you start seeing things differently. Not that the world itself magically changes overnight,
Yeah.
but your perception of it does.
Yeah.
You might spot opportunities you just didn't see before. You approach relationships maybe with more openness, find a bit more resilience when things get tough.
It's like that analogy one of the sources used, it really clicked for me, is like putting on a new pair of glasses. You change how you see, and that fundamentally changes how you interact with everything around you. You're not just reacting anymore, you're engaging from a different starting point.
Which brings us to this really crucial point. The sources hammer home the sheer power of our self-talk and our beliefs.
Yeah, that constant conversation in your head.
Right. The things you tell yourself over and over, they're not just like passing thoughts. They actually harden into these deeply held beliefs.
And those beliefs absolutely steer your actions, don't they?
Totally. This is where those anecdotes in the material become so illustrative, like the story of someone just plagued by constant self-doubt.
Oh yeah, the I'm not good enough, I'm definitely going to fail loop.
Exactly that loop. And, well, surprise, surprise, that inner narrative often became a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
They were kind of defeated mentally before they even started, which
Yeah.
obviously impacted their effort, their actions, and, well, the results.
The belief sort of created the reality, in a way, and the shift. According to this source, it didn't start with some huge external event. It started with just noticing, becoming aware of that negative self-talk,
Just the awareness.
and then deliberately choosing to replace it. So instead of the harsh, I'm going to fail, maybe trying something a bit more compassionate. Like, okay, I'm doing my best right now, and I'm learning as I go.
That small shift in the internal language. It feels like everything hinges on that sometimes. There was another story, too, about someone feeling completely stuck in a job they hated.
Oh, I remember that one. Their inner track was just stuck on, I have no choice. I'm trapped here.
And that belief, that feeling of having zero agency, it kept them completely frozen. For years, apparently.
Until, and the story goes, they heard this simple but kind of profound idea. You always have a choice.
Even if the choices seem impossible or awful, the fact that choice exists, even just in how you think or respond.
That little seed of a thought just cracked open that whole I'm trapped belief system.
And it led to a different question inside, right? Like, okay, wait, what if I could find a better job?
Exactly. And that new thought, that question, it kicked off action research, talking to people, applying.
And eventually, a totally different career. It just shows how one shift in a core belief can, like, fundamentally redirect your whole life path.
It really echoes that, quote, one source included from Norman Vincent Peale. Change your thoughts, and you change your world.
Yeah. And it's important, I think, that the sources clarify this isn't about pretending everything's perfect or, slapping on some fake positivity.
No, definitely not. It's more about choosing your internal stance, being kind to yourself, being honest, but also actively selecting thoughts that empower you instead of just letting those limiting beliefs run wild.
Right. Letting them run the show unchecked. Okay, so if that's the what and the why, the big question is, how do you actually do this? How do you start? Thankfully, the sources give some really practical, actionable steps.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And the absolute foundation, The first step they all mention is self-awareness. You have to sort of become a detective of your own mind.
Like, what thoughts are playing on repeat? What are the usual patterns? Am I always criticizing myself? Do I jump to the worst case scenario automatically?
Exactly. And a simple way to start building that awareness, suggested in the material, is journaling. Doesn't have to be pages and pages, just, a few minutes each day. Jot down the thoughts that feel dominant.
And then look at them kind of objectively, like, okay, is this thought actually helping me, or is it just dragging me down?
Precisely. And once you start spotting those negative or limiting ones, the next step is to challenge them. Don't just accept them as fact.
The sources say to question their validity, right? Ask yourself, is this really true? Like 100% true? Is there evidence? Or is it just an assumption I'm making, or maybe a fear?
Yeah, is there any other way I could look at this situation? Often you find those negative thoughts are built on pretty shaky ground. They're not usually solid facts.
Another really powerful practice they mention is gratitude.
Yes.
Gratitude.
Just taking a moment each day, maybe writing it down to identify, say, 3 things you're genuinely grateful for. And the sources suggest this isn't just about feeling good momentarily.
No, they actually mention it can help rewire your brain.
That's the fascinating part. That's where the science bit comes in, this idea of neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm. Our brains are incredibly adaptable. Think of your thoughts like paths in a forest, right? The more you walk down a path, the clearer it gets.
So negative thinking carves these deep grooves.
Exactly. But practicing gratitude or challenging those negative thoughts or consciously focusing on different perspectives, that's like deliberately forging new paths.
And the more you use those new paths,
the stronger they become, and the old negative ones start to fade, get overgrown. You're literally changing the physical structure and wiring of your brain over time by changing your thinking patterns. It's amazing, really.
It is. And knowing that connection between the practical steps and the actual brain science, it's huge. It means we're not just stuck with the wiring we have now. We can actively cultivate new, more helpful patterns. And this applies just as much to things like using positive affirmations too.
Right. Repeating simple, empowering statements like, I am capable, or I choose peace.
Now, the sources do acknowledge this can feel, well, a bit awkward, or even fake at first.
Definitely. You might be saying, I am confident, while inside you're feeling the exact opposite.
But the idea isn't necessarily instant belief. It's more about consistent exposure to the desired thought. It's about introducing that possibility into your mental space again and again.
It's like training a muscle, isn't it? You don't lift a dumbbell once and suddenly have huge biceps.
Exactly. You show up consistently, you do the reps, and over time the muscle gets stronger.
So repeating an affirmation, maybe combining it with taking small actions that align with it, gradually that builds the new neural pathway. It starts as just words.
But with practice, it can become a feeling, then maybe a belief, and eventually, part of your actual identity.
We shouldn't forget the environment either. The sources make a good point about that.
Oh, definitely. Who and what you surround yourself with, people, media, it significantly influences your own thought patterns.
It just makes sense, right? If you're constantly soaking in negativity or discouraging stuff, it's going to be a real uphill battle to cultivate positive thinking internally.
So choose people who generally lift you up, who inspire you. Or, if that's tricky, consciously feed your mind with positive, enriching content. Books, podcasts, videos that support the kind of mindset you want to develop.
Now, there's also something really important the sources touch on, which can be challenging. What about when you feel truly stuck? Maybe dealing with significant depression or anxiety.
Yes, that's a crucial distinction. This isn't about suggesting positive thinking is some kind of magic cure-all for serious mental health conditions.
Absolutely not. And the material is quite clear about this. If you're facing those kinds of challenges, seeking professional help, talking to a therapist, a counselor, that's a vital act of strength and self-care.
Totally agree. These thought techniques can be supportive tools alongside professional treatment, but they're definitely not a replacement for it.
Right. However, even in those really, really tough moments, the sources suggest that small shifts in self-talk can still offer maybe a tiny bit of light or just a different path forward internally.
Yeah, like the internal conversation might shift away from something absolute like I am hopeless toward something maybe a little softer, more compassionate, and arguably more truthful. Like, okay, I am struggling deeply right now, and that is okay.
It's about acknowledging the pain, isn't it? Without letting the thought solidify into this absolute, inescapable identity.
Exactly. That more compassionate internal voice, even when you're really struggling, it could maybe open the door just a crack for healing or help you stay connected to the possibility that things can change eventually.
Your self-talk during really hard times, it can either dig the hole deeper or help you build a ladder, maybe.
That's a good way to put it. So, okay, let's try and draw all this together, the power of belief, these practical tools, the brain science. How about we try that little exercise from the source material, taking some common negative thoughts and practicing reframing them.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. I'm ready. What's the first one?
How about that classic one? I always mess things up. So easy to fall into that.
Right. Okay, the source offers a reframe like, I'm learning from my experiences and getting better every day. See how it acknowledges something happened, but pivots the focus to growth.
Nice. I like that. Okay,
Yeah.
or that feeling of being stuck, maybe professionally. I'll never be successful.
Uh-huh. You could reframe that to something like, success is a process or a journey, and I'm taking valuable steps forward on my path. It focuses on the movement, the progress, not just some final fixed destination.
Good one. And maybe a really painful one. No one likes me.
Oof. Yeah, that's tough. A compassionate reframing from the material could be, I am worthy of connection and the right people will appreciate me for who I am.
It shifts from that sweeping negative judgment to affirming your inherent worth, doesn't it?
Exactly. And again, it's not about pretending or being unrealistic. It's about recognizing you have agency. You have a choice in how you interpret things, how you talk to yourself. You can practice flipping that internal script.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I think the overarching message from all these sources is pretty undeniable, really. Your thoughts. They're not just passive bystanders in your life.
No, they're active participants, co-creators almost.
Yeah, co-creators. And this journey of thought transformation, it's ongoing, isn't it? It's a practice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself. Be gentle. Talk to yourself like you would talk to someone you really love and care about.
These sources are such a powerful reminder that, you are capable of so much more than your limiting thoughts might sometimes lead you to believe.
So here's maybe a final thought from this material to leave you with, something to kind of chew on. If our thoughts really do help create our reality, what hidden opportunities, what untapped potential, maybe what unexperienced joy is just sitting there waiting, just beyond the limiting beliefs we haven't quite challenged yet.
Change your thoughts. And according to these sources, you don't just change how you feel about your life. You really can change your life itself.